This might just be the craziest wrestling game ever. Today, we are going to go back to 2003, playing WrestleMania 19 for the Nintendo GameCube. This is a continuation of the amazing partnership between WWE and Nintendo, starting with WrestleMania 2000 for the N64 and continuing through WrestleMania 19, culminating with Day of Reckoning 2. WrestleMania 19 is the second WWE game on the GameCube, following on from the controversial WrestleMania X8. So let's dive into this sequel and just see how unexpectedly crazy this game actually is. If you like this sort of video and want to see more video game reviews just like this one, then please consider subscribing. I also tend to get some details wrong in these lookbacks, so feel free to correct me down in the comments and keep me right. The WWE in 2003 was in an interesting phase. Many of the top stars from the Attitude Era were either leaving or had already left, leaving the WWE with a vacuum at the top of the card, and this would allow newer talent like Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, and Booker T to try and fill those big boots. Prior to this, in the early 2000s, THQ would publish exclusive WWE games for the N64, starting with WrestleMania 2000, which would then lead to the critically acclaimed No Mercy. When the GameCube was released in 2001, Yuke's were already preparing to change the game on PS2, but GameCube would get another exclusive wrestling game with WrestleMania X8, which was a little controversial. The game was visually okay, nothing really to write home about, and the gameplay was mostly also okay, but it was nothing like the mainline SmackDown series on PlayStation. Even simple things like the game cover was controversial, as Stone Cold had to be replaced in subsequent releases of the game due to him walking out of the WWE after refusing to lose to Brock Lesnar on an episode of Raw. I guess ultimately WrestleMania 18 struggled with its identity. It didn't know whether to be something completely unique or be more like the SmackDown series, but ultimately it didn't really land, which made the decision to release WrestleMania 19 the next year a nervous one for fans. Fans were concerned that they were going to get another subpar wrestling game experience, and why bother getting a GameCube in the two WrestleMania games when you could have more fun and potentially play with your friends on the more mainstream SmackDown series? I mentioned before that WrestleMania 18 is a continuation of the partnership between WWE and Nintendo. This would extend to the way the game plays. If you've ever played WWF No Mercy, then you know how different that game plays to the SmackDown series, as SmackDown aimed to be an arcade-style experience for a wider market, and No Mercy attempts to simulate the real ebb and flow of a real wrestling match. As a result, WrestleMania 19 would follow on from No Mercy and keep the controls that Nintendo fans would expect from a new wrestling game. So pressing a button will do a quick strike or grapple, and holding the button will do a stronger variation of that action. And likewise, the game doesn't have a typical finisher stock that you would see in modern games now. The more moves and taunts and pressure that you put on your opponent fills up the momentum bar, which allows you to enter a special state when full, allowing you to hit as many finishers as you want within the allocated time frame. Whether you prefer this or not is entirely subjective. I happen to quite like both options, but I do wonder what WWE 2K would be like with this special state finisher style. Matches are quite chaotic as the game features an improved physics engine. Moves and attacks can interrupt other moves and attacks. This is standard in the later GameCube games, but it was never fully carried over to the mainline series on PS2. If you're in a multi-person match and you see a major move happening, you can throw another opponent into them to interrupt or break that move. It's actually pretty sick, and it looks awesome. It can also get really frustrating when you're trying to do those moves though. WrestleMania 19 also features a good selection of match types. There were games that came out after this with less match types, and it doesn't feel like you're going to be missing anything crazy here. It is worth noting though that the inaugural Elimination Chamber did take place that year, however that match never featured on any GameCube wrestling game, which is actually really disappointing. I said earlier that this game was surprisingly crazy, and you're probably thinking that nothing I've said so far sounds particularly mad. Well, this game doesn't have a traditional story mode that you would have played in the other wrestling games of the time. In fact, the story mode for this game doesn't even take place within a wrestling ring. The story for this game is called Revenge Mode, and this is because the contract for your chosen character has expired and you've been excessively escorted out of the building. Waiting for you outside of the building is none other than the boss's daughter, Stephanie McMahon, who gives you a second chance. She will allow you to get your revenge on the WWE by doing everything you can to ruin WrestleMania 19. This does mean lots of fighting in dingy streets and completing some very unique challenges that you would not see in other wrestling games. You can fight in areas like the construction site, shopping mall, parking lot, and even in a harbour. You're given an overview of the map to even see how these areas connect within the world. And although these areas do reuse assets, they actually do look varied and interesting enough. Most of the challenges really involve throwing police, construction workers, or other wrestlers into oncoming traffic or literally off of a building. Through completing these missions, you will earn cash based on how many people that you defeat and at what difficulty. The game also contains a unique shop zone area that allows you to spend cash for lots of unique Create a Wrestler body parts, entrance animations, taunts, and even new finishing moves. You can also buy ability points to upgrade your created characters, and I saw online that it would cost about $80,000 to fully upgrade a character, which seems like a lot if you happen to make a lot of different characters. So the visuals aren't perfect, but they are better than WrestleMania X8. The game has very clearly some kind of art style going on, and it's not supposed to look photorealistic, but it does look nice. Typically, games that retain unique art styles like this do tend to age a bit better than games with photorealistic graphics, which can then look pretty dated pretty fast. One thing that I think this game really nails is the entrances. Again, they aren't perfect, but I think they got lots of little details right this time around. For example, Royal Rumble 2003 featured a stage that was offset to the right. This game actually has characters enter through the curtain on the right and walk to the correct position on the ramp. No other game has done this right even to today. And generally speaking, the arenas in the game look really nice. But there is a small selection of them as the game doesn't feature every pay-per-view from that year. You only really have access to Raw, SmackDown, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and WrestleMania. But to make up for this, there is a selection of all the revenge stages to choose from, although they are not available for normal wrestling matches, which is a little lame. Critics would generally review the game really well. IGN would give the game an 8, citing the fun factor of the game and saying that the gameplay suits good local multiplayer experiences. GameSpot would give the game about 75 out of 100, saying that the game is an improvement over the previous year's attempt, but that the revenge mode was ultimately a bad decision. Over the years, I don't see many people talking about this game online. I guess one major factor is that the GameCube was not a big seller, and was dominated by the PS2 over the course of that generation. This would then lead to the WrestleMania games presumably having smaller budgets and potentially tighter deadlines when developing the games. I enjoyed my time with WrestleMania 19, and as a fan of Day of Reckoning, it can be really hard to go back to a previous version of a great game. Thankfully, WrestleMania 19 is decent and different enough to keep my attention through the playthrough. It has to be said though that the absolute biggest swerve that this game provides is the revenge mode, which is very much not like any other story mode in any wrestling game ever. I have to really appreciate though a game that attempts something different, especially in the 2020s when games are becoming more formulaic. Risks like revenge mode are very much welcome, even if they just don't stick the landing in the final game. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your memories of WrestleMania 19 in the comments down below, and subscribe for more wrestling game reviews and gameplay. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and bye for now.